Next up in our showcase on Rioja, we're going now straight to Madrid, where Artur de Lencquesaing is sitting. He's the international director of Marques de Murrieta. Good morning, good evening to you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jan. Pleasure to be here with you. I'm very happy to be presenting Capinia with you today.
How is the weather in Madrid at this moment?
Quite amazing, actually. We've been having an amazing weather, very warm, sunny. It's amazing in a way, and it could be also a bit worrying because we're lacking a bit of water at the moment. So we hope things are going to evolve in a different way. But I'm quite happy of having a bit of sun.
We have had an extraordinary weather year here in Los Angeles, and everyone is currently enjoying what we consider a super bloom. There are flowers appearing everywhere, and it's quite a glorious moment.
Same here.
Let's go into our slideshow and talk about this spectacular white Rioja from Marques de Murrieta. And I'm going to have you take the lead, Artur. We'll look at the map and tell us where is Marques de Murrieta.
So Marques de Murrieta is just in the outskirts of Logroño, about 5 minutes away from Logroño. Logroño is the capital of Rioja, and we are nearly in between Rioja Alavesa, Rioja Alta, and Rioja Baja. But the estate, which is called Finca Igay, is within the Rioja Alta sub-appellation.
Historic. I'm sorry to step on you. The historic nature of all these properties. I know there's been some recent upgrades to the facility, but you've been around for over 150 years. Yes.
Yeah. Now we've been actually celebrating last year in 2022 our 170th anniversary. So the whole project started a bit before 1852, but it was officially launched in 1852. And the history of Marques de Murrieta is really special, as it was really the vision of a man called Luciano de Murrieta. He was born in Arequipa in Peru in 1822, and he started in the army. And for political reason, he was head of camp, a very important general who became the regent of Spain for several years. He had to go in exile in London. When he was in London, he discovered the amazing wines and some of the tables, important tables where he was invited to. And he discovered that a big part of the fine wines that were presented were wines from Bordeaux, called the Claret at the time. Because he had some time in London, he asked his general to go to Bordeaux and discover the amazing chateaus and the amazing wines that were produced in this region. And he progressively became so interested and passionate about it that he decided to leave the army and move to this town of Logroño, where he looked after the goods and the properties of the wife of the general whom he was working for. And decided to launch his own wine. He started exporting his wine, and actually Marques de Murrieta was the first winery to export wines from Rioja in an important quantity at the time, and we're talking about 1852. And this is where his whole project started. This is where things begin at Marques de Murrieta.
740 acres is a fantastic size. Where do you guys rank in size? I mean, I think of your brand, especially with the Igay estate, as being super premium. So it's not only a healthy size, but also super premium.
I mean, I'm coming from Bordeaux, so my comparative often wines from this area. We're talking about a Grand Cru Classé of the size of 40 to 100 hectares, roughly. And here we're talking about 300 hectares, so 740 acres, which makes it a very important vineyard. And in the area is one of the largest family-owned vineyard of one single parcel or big plot. It's called the Finca Igay. It's the Igay estate. That's the name of the property that have been growing progressively. And today, with the 740 acres, it seems to be a large estate, but at the same time, it's really looked after as a garden. It's large, but the team is wide to look after it, and the fact that everything is close to the winery, that makes it very easy for the team to look after one parcel and another. And the whole vineyard is divided into 40 different parcels that are fermented separately and looked after in a very different way, because everything is in the slopes, and the grape variety that we're using makes that we have to divide our estate into those different plots.
The new facility was erected in, I would say, 2018.
Yeah, 2018 was the first vintage that was made in this new facility. Historically, all the wine were made in the Castillo, in the chateau. The Castillo was the building that was built by Luciano de Murrieta, where he started his fermentation. So that's, of course, inspired by the Bordelais, by the Bordeaux estate, where the concept of the chateau is not the building itself, but the fact that you've got your own vineyard surrounding your winery. So that means that you've got this easy access and to your vineyard. So progressively over the years, it was lacking space, and Maria de Vargas, the winemaker, and Vicente Cebrián, the owner, decided to create a big project that took several years to be erected. And they built an old underground building, where you can see here some of the barrels. And this huge project is now 25,000 square meters of winery, which is an amazing luxury for the winemaker Maria Vargas, because the space is luxury. The fact of being able to really access any single barrel is amazing, especially if you combine it with the latest technology that has been used in the winery. So that's combination makes that from the 2018 we got a slightly improvement also in the quality or better in the understanding of how to make the wine, and how to monitor even better our understanding of the grapes that we collect.
French oak is a big part of the wine that we're tasting today. And do you use French and American and on the wines, or are you exclusively French oak at Marques de Murrieta?
Yeah, of course, traditionally Rioja has been really linked to American oak. From the first barrels that were imported, they were American, but we at Murrieta keep a strong tradition of American oak. That makes, for example, Marques Murrieta Reserva, it is American oak only. And from some of the wines, we use a combination of both French and American, like Castille, where about 15 to 20% of our wine goes under French oak. In the case specifically of Capellania, this is 100% French oak, even though in the coming vintage, there is a small proportion of American oak that has been incorporated again.
And here is also where the wine, once the wines have left the barrel, they're bottled and held sometimes for years. And this type of storage is what you'll see at all the top producers in Rioja. It's quite elaborate and quite necessary. And the wines are laid down here without the label being attached yet, because of the length of term and the humidity. They keep those and only label them when they go to the export market.
That's quite amazing, quite fascinating to see a whole region like Rioja that has been really focusing on aging. Today, many producers, many wineries are selling wines en primeur, are selling wines very young. We've got an all opposite approach in Marques Murrieta and in Rioja for most producers, where we really want to make sure that when we release the wine is ready to be consumed. If you take some of the old vintage of Marques Murrieta, I'll take the example of 1925 Castille, for example. It was released in the 60s, in the late 60s. So that means the wine has been, waiting more than 40 years in barrel, the different content, and of course in bottle. so that when it's released, it's just the perfect moment for it. And of course, those wines, beside the fact of having them in the market when they are ready, they've got still a huge potential for aging. And I'm talking about the red wine, of course, but also the white wines.
For sure. The current vintage of Igai that's being offered here in Los Angeles is 2011.
Correct. Yeah.
So
we started in 2011 last year. In January 2022, sorry, we released this wine for the first time. And we usually have our Castille Igai for 2 years because of the small number of vintage that we produce. We don't produce every year. And coming vintage will be 2012, that will be released in 2024. And after that, we have no 13, no 14, no 15, and we'll be jumping to 2016. So I think, I'm really looking forward to 2016 that I've been lucky to taste. But that's going to be, a big jump. And very few wineries have got a capacity of taking this decision of saying, we just don't produce for 3 vintages in a row. And I think that's important, and that relates to the whole identity and quality of those wines, in which you can take very, very tough decision to make your wine.
Well, it was a very difficult decision to decide which wine we were going to be showcasing from your magnificent property. But I am most taken by this and I want to pronounce it with you, Capellana.
Yeah, Capellania. The 2 L's in Spanish, it's pronounced. I shouldn't teach Spanish because I'm still learning it, being French. But the 2 L's are pronounced yeah, like Capellania. So that's the name. That's actually the name of the parcel itself.
Beautiful. And I love white Rioja, similar to my love of white Bordeaux. And they're both a small portion of, white Bordeaux is like 3% of all Bordeaux made, maybe even less. Do you have any idea how much white Rioja represents in the pie chart of things? Or maybe just you speak about your brand or the whole marketplace, do you know?
Yeah, I can tell you about our brand. For us, it represents less than 3% of our vineyard. We are talking about 2017 vintage where we produced less than 23,000 bottles. So that's a tiny proportion of what we do. The old Rioja, from the 164,000 acres that accounts for the appellation, is less than 9%. I think it's about 14,000 acres, a bit more than 14,000 acres. But in the past, it used to be bigger. In 1985, Rioja was planted for 25% in white grape varieties. So now it's really small. For us, we only have 1 grape variety, which is Viura. We used to have a bit of Malvasia, really tiny, but we don't have it anymore. So really our focus is this single vineyard, single plot. This is called Capellania. This is only a bit less than 15 acres of land. So that was planted in 1945, very low yields, and a wine that we really it's the only white wine that we produce together with another wine that we produce only the best vintage or in some selected vintage every 12 to 15 years, which is called Castille Igai White. But Capellania is got a very different style than Castille Igai.
And this is considered a Pago, which means a single vineyard, yes?
Yeah. We are not under the Pago because it's something that we have had for forever, but it's a single vineyard of our highest plots. So we're talking about 485 meters of altitude, which is 1,590 feet of altitude. So it's the highest part that we have is calcareous clay soil. So planted in 1945, which explains part of this very small yields.
Well, we're going to taste it now, and share the extraordinary character of this wine. What do you optimally pair with this wine, and when do you think this particular production will be optimal to open and enjoy and maybe runway?
So for me, this is a wine that can go a bit beyond the classic pairing. So classic being say crab and lobster, some oysters, because of its structure and because of the greasiness, because of the weight that this wine has. This is a wine that can be paired beautifully with white meats, with pork, with poultries. One of the pairing I really like is sometimes we do it at the winery with our chef. It's Poulard de Bresse. Poulard de Bresse is known from another wine producing region in France. Very, very famous for the elegance of this chicken, and it's very nicely paired with Capiania, especially if you add a bit of truffle. I think here truffle and some spices can play beautifully with Capiania.
Yeah, this is not just a great expression of white Rioja, but a great white wine of the world, and really could be served next to some of the great Burgundies. I'd love to do it in a great flight of top scoring wines of the world, and see what, taste them blind and let people.
Yeah. This is quite funny what you're saying, because quite a lot of people are using it like that. We've got one, the best sommelier of Belgium, and he's one of our people who offer our wines in the country, and he calls it the Burgundy killer. And he often brings this wine among top Meursault, Chassagne-Montrachet, and bring this wine when they have blind tasting, and in the middle, it really surprises people, because people remember the very, the difference with those, fine Burgundy. Of course, the idea is not to do Burgundy. Our identity is different. Of course, our grape is different. The aromas is different. But it's a wine that, in terms of structure, especially mouthfeel, is quite similar in some ways to those, really, really fine white wines, white Chardonnay. But it's got something more, something different. And this is why a lot of sommeliers are big fans of Capiania, because they can surprise the guests. And they can bring something that people will, it will enlighten people, and it will discover something that they never had before. And the fact that is, we call it the white wine with red soul, because of its pairing, because of its intensity, because of its characteristics that are so different to other white wine. I think it's a wine that really people remember once they've tried it.
Well, I really appreciate your time and explanation. Hopefully in the future I get to come and see you at the property, and real excited to taste this wine now with our guests.
Great. Enjoy your tasting, and definitely you have to come to the winery, and all of the people who are watching us. I think the fact of discovering this fascinating winery, the fascinating landscape of Rioja, really makes you change your perception. The first time I came to Rioja, I was really, really fascinated by it. I was coming from other regions where we produce wine, but I thought that Rioja has such amazing identity. And if you discover then the food, the beautiful wineries, the beautiful estates, then I think it's something that you'll remember your whole life.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jan.
Have a good day now. Thank you, sir. Hope to see you in November, Artur.
Yes, hope to see you soon.
We're going to come in November, and we're bringing a group.
You're bringing a November group, great.
I'll bring a small group, about 10 to 12, and we'll come in November.
Okay, good. I'll see you there.
All right, cheers. Thank you.
Okay, have a good day. Bye, Jan.